we didn't have the idea of the centre when all of this was in its infancy. We actually, our main motivation was to keep the building in community use because the school was closing.
Yeah. The idea came, as far as I'm aware, from a conversation in the playground of Bennett Road Primary, or Headingley Primary School as it was then.
And so it was our motivation to keep the building in community use that saw the birth of Headingley Development Trust, because we said we've got to create an organisation that enables us to negotiate.
Jane already knew about Development Trust. I didn't in my naivety. But so she invited a lot of movers and shakers around to her house to talk about the setting up of the trust. And so the idea of keeping Headingley primary school in community use was just one of the ideas on the table. It was our main motivation, but there were other people with other strong motivations to start the farmers market and to do other things as well.
I saw a role advertised for a development manager within Headingley Development Trust, and they were looking for someone with skills in construction, in communications, in membership organisations, and it just seemed such a fit for my role or my previous experience that I applied for this role in North Leeds Life and started working there in May of 2007.
Well, it was slightly a busman's holiday for me because that was my day job. At the time I was developing Shine, just got together on that, so social enterprise developer, and it just fit in so well. I mean, it was ideal sort of training ground for me at the same time.
I was nicknamed Tinkerbell in the public meetings because I used to say, if we all believe strongly enough that this can happen, it will happen. And people would go, oh my God, Tinkerbell again.
I suppose HTT was probably formed fairly early on, so I was one of the original directors. And then we had a subgroup to take the Heart project on, and so I was one of that subgroup.
So, I mean, I chaired meetings and things, but I wrote things, I think. But I didn't have any of the knowledge or skills to actually set the place up. We needed the whole board.
We had support always from local councillors. We didn't, and from the area committee, on which Headingley Ward was a part. We didn't have support from council officers. On the whole,
overwhelmingly, it was the politics of it all that were difficult. It took years to sort the politics because the council said, you know, well, you've got the community centre. This is a very viable building. It's worth over £1 million. We want to sell it, and you know, it took 3 years really to bash through that. You know, the share issue was a wonderful experience to have packed out rooms of people wanting to give you money is a novel experience for most of us.
But what really surprised and thrilled not only me, but also all the board, was that first week or two after that email came back and having the letters come in and being dropped off. And my role was to open the letters and to pull out check after check after check, some of which were quite substantial sums. And it was one thing to be given the money, it was the other thing to be given the permission and the gravitas that this project would now have and be seen not only by the council, but by other funders. It just took heart into another level to be able to open those envelopes, and it was massively exciting because it's a bit like the lottery. You put your ticket in and you don't know if you're going to win, and we certainly won. And we raised within, I think, the first 2 months of that initial call to arms on the share issue, we raised around about £50,000 that first time, which was just phenomenal.
Gosh, well, lots. You know, I never, well, I don't know about, I can't speak for anyone else, but certainly I never tried to record the hours put in, but we did, all of us, have to put a lot of time in. I mean, looking back on it, I don't know how we managed it really, but there we go.
Well, I was lucky because I could, you know, integrate the work, because there was a lot of work, but I could integrate it more with my day job. It was easy. I do think people like Richard Norton and Leslie Jeffries and Jane Williams and so on had to pull out all the stops.
So I was employed in a part-time capacity, in theory, 3 days a week, but as the majority of the board were in full-time employment, I found that the majority of our meetings took place usually probably about 8 o'clock in the evening, but certainly in the days approaching the start of the Heart project, they could go on to 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. The board worked extremely hard, and obviously I had to match my hours to make sure that they were able to attend and participate in the conversations that we were having.
Is that you? Do you know, what I do know,
It was a working title.
it was a working title. We weren't going to keep it. I don't remember where it came from.
And it was actually my colleague Alan Wallace who came up with Heart, the Headingley Enterprise and Arts Centre. And I defy anyone to say otherwise.
I honestly can't remember where it came from. It was in a meeting, and I think
perhaps
we
Chris
were,
Hill thinks it was him.
well, I don't know. But
It was in our working group, so I think it, you know, Jane, Leslie, Chris, myself, whoever else was in there. There was somebody said, "Oh, well, if we had Heart, you know, if we had Headingley Enterprise and Arts Centre, we can abbreviate it as Heart." And somebody else said, "Oh no, we don't want that."
But I think, but you see, we don't know, because
we
it
weren't
was
gonna
one
keep
of
it.
101 million other bloody discussions that went on.
I remember that the board was saying, "Oh, it's too twee, you know, it's not. It's a bit kind of." But actually, I don't think it could be called anything else now.
Usually these made-up acronyms, is acronym the right word? But these made-up things don't work. But Heart, Headingley Enterprise and Arts Centre, was just so real. It was fabulous.
So when you walked around the building before the developers got in, there were multiple little signs that it was obviously and had been a primary school. There were the coat hooks with the little signs where people would put their names. There were the benches underneath where they could put their little their shoes. And in some rooms there were still actually blackboards pinned to the wall. And it was really lovely to see all those little mementos of the fact that it was still a school, or had been a school. And we tried where possible to keep as much of those sort of little vignettes of history, so that people can still see what Heart was and what it's become.
I think the day that we opened, and I was singing in the community choir on the Pulse mezzanine, and out of the window I could see, it makes me cry, I could see all these people coming into the building, and actually it made me cry, because I just thought, my gosh, you know, people were pouring into the building that day to see it and to be delighted by it. And actually, it was terribly lovely.
It was the best.
It was the best feeling.
Yes, it was. It was worth it, all of it. Yeah.
It was really special.
It was fairly upsetting that we can't celebrate the 10th anniversary in the same way. I'd really like to be doing that. Maybe it will be the 11th.